You know, here at the shop, we see all kinds of things come through the door. Old swords, vintage guitars, you name it. But some of the oldest, coolest things we ever see are coins. People don't always think about it, but every coin tells a story. Before coins, if you wanted to buy something, you had to trade. Maybe you had a chicken and you wanted some bread. You had to find someone with bread who wanted a chicken. It was complicated. This system is called bartering. It worked for a while, but as towns grew into cities, people needed a better way. They needed something small, easy to carry, and that everyone agreed had value. So, where did the first coins come from? We have to go way back. I'm talking about 2,700 years ago. It happened in a place called Lydia, which is in modern-day Turkey. The Lydians were smart cookies. They had a lot of a natural metal mix called electrum. It was a blend of gold and silver that washed down in their rivers. They started making small, bean-shaped lumps of this metal. To make sure everyone knew it was official, they stamped it with a picture. Usually, it was a lion's head. That stamp was like a guarantee from the king. It said, "This piece of metal is real and it's worth a certain amount." And just like that, the first coin was born. This was a huge deal. It was a game changer for business. Suddenly, trade was so much easier. A soldier could get paid in a few small coins instead of a sack of grain. A merchant could travel to another city and use the same money. It made everything faster and simpler. These Lydian coins weren't perfect, of course. The amount of gold and silver in each one could be a little different. So one coin might be worth more than another, even if they looked the same. But it was a start. It was an idea that would change the world forever. It laid the groundwork for every economy that came after. Think about that for a second. That little piece of metal was more than just money. It was a symbol of trust. It was a promise from a ruler to his people. It was also a piece of art and a form of propaganda. The king put his symbol on it to show his power. He was telling everyone, "I'm in charge here." So, when you hold an ancient coin, you're not just holding money. You're holding a piece of history, a piece of art, and a political statement all rolled into one. It's a direct connection to a world that existed thousands of years ago, and that, to me, is just unbelievable. After the Lydians got the ball rolling, the idea of coins spread like wildfire, and nobody did it better than the ancient Greeks. The Greeks weren't one big country like the United States is today. They were a bunch of different city-states like Athens, Sparta, and Corinth. Each city-state wanted to show off how great it was, so they started making their own unique coins. This was a way to broadcast their identity. It was like having your own flag or your own sports team. The coins were a source of civic pride, and they made some of the most beautiful coins ever. Take the Athenian owl, for example. This is probably one of the most famous coins from the ancient world. Around 500 BC, Athens started minting these thick, silver coins. On one side, you have the head of their goddess, Athena. She was the goddess of wisdom and their city's protector. On the other side, you have her symbol, the owl. It was a sign of truth and knowledge. These coins were made from silver from their own mines, and they were known everywhere for being pure. People trusted the Athenian owl. It became the first international currency, kind of like the United States dollar is today. You could spend it all over the Mediterranean. Then you have the Romans. The Romans were brilliant engineers and soldiers, and they were also brilliant with their money. When the Roman Republic grew into the massive Roman Empire, their coins went with them. Roman coins were like the internet of their day. They spread news and propaganda across a huge territory. When a new emperor took power, one of the first things he did was mint new coins with his face on them. This was how he told everyone, from Britain to Egypt, there's a new boss in town. It was a powerful tool for communication. The Romans made coins out of gold, silver, and bronze. The gold coin was the aureus, the silver was the denarius, and they had various bronze coins for smaller transactions. A soldier might get paid a few denarii a month. With these coins, people could buy goods from all corners of the empire. A person in Rome could buy spices from India, or silk from China, all using Roman money. Holding a Roman denarius is like holding a piece of that vast network. You can almost feel the history. You think about whose hands it passed through. A legionary, a senator, a shopkeeper. Every one of them had a story. The idea of coins wasn't just a European thing. It popped up in other parts of the world too. Sometimes the idea spread along trade routes, and sometimes people came up with it on their own. In China, for example, they had a completely different system. For centuries, they used cowrie shells as a form of money, but around the same time the Greeks were making their beautiful silver coins, the Chinese started making metal money. But their coins looked very different. They didn't make round discs. Instead, they made metal tools, like tiny knives or spades, and used those as currency. Eventually, the Chinese moved to a more practical design. Around 200 BC, the first emperor of a unified China, Qin Shi Huang, made a big change. He said everyone had to use the same money. He introduced a round bronze coin with a square hole in the middle. This design was genius. The round shape represented heaven, and the square hole represented the earth. More practically, you could string these coins together. 1,000 coins on a string made a string of cash. This basic design, the round coin with a square hole, was so successful that it was used in China for over 2,000 years. That's an incredible run. Meanwhile, in India, they also developed their own coins. The earliest ones were called punch-marked coins. They weren't round and perfectly stamped like Greek coins. They were odd-shaped pieces of silver. Merchants or local kingdoms would punch their own little symbols onto them. You might find a coin with a fish, an elephant, a sun, and a bull all stamped on it. Each mark was a guarantee of its weight and purity from a different person or group. It was like a passport with stamps from all the places it had been. It's a totally different approach to the same problem, how to create money everyone can trust. So you see, all these different cultures, Lydian, Greek, Roman, Chinese, Indian, all found their own way to make coins. The coins they made tell us so much about them. They show us their gods, their rulers, their symbols, and what they valued. And as these cultures traded with each other, their coins traveled. A Roman merchant might end up with an Indian coin in his pouch. A Chinese trader might see a coin from Persia. The coins connected the world in a way it had never been connected before. They were the first truly global network, small metal messengers traveling across continents. After the Roman Empire fell apart, things in Europe got a little chaotic. For a while, big-time trade slowed down. A lot of people went back to a more local way of life. The beautiful, high-quality coins of the Roman era were replaced by cruder stuff. Local lords and kings started making their own coins. Often they were thin, poorly struck pieces of silver. They were not as pure, and the designs were not as artistic. This period is sometimes called the Dark Ages, and the coins kind of reflect that. They were functional, but they didn't have the same grandeur as the old Roman coins. Things started to change in the later Middle Ages. Big, powerful kingdoms like England and France began to form. They needed good, reliable money for their growing economies. In England, they started making silver pennies. For a long time, that was the main coin. If you needed to pay for something small, you literally cut the penny in half or into quarters. That's where we get phrases like halfpenny. The coins from this time often had a simple cross on the back, which made them easy to cut accurately. It was a practical solution for a time when there weren't a lot of different denominations. Then came the Renaissance. This was a rebirth of art, science, and culture in Europe, and you can see it in the coins. As Italian city-states like Florence and Venice got rich from trade, they wanted to show off their wealth and sophistication. They started making big, beautiful gold coins again. The Florentine florin and the Venetian ducat became the new international currencies. They were known all over for their purity and beautiful designs. The art of coin making was back. Artists who were famous for painting and sculpture were hired to design coins. The coins became miniature works of art once more. This period also saw the rise of the thaler. This was a large silver coin first minted in Joachimsthal, a town in Bohemia. It was a big, heavy, reliable coin, and it became incredibly popular all over Europe. The name thaler got changed and adapted in different languages. In Dutch, it was the daalder. In Spanish, it was the dollar. When the Spanish started mining huge amounts of silver in the Americas, they made a coin called the piece of 8. This Spanish dollar became the most important coin in the world for centuries. In fact, it was legal tender in the United States until 1857. Our own United States dollar is a direct descendant of that old German thaler. Every collector dreams of finding that 1-in-a-million coin, the one that's worth a fortune. So, what makes a coin one of the rarest in the world? Sometimes it's a mistake. Other times, only a few were ever made. And sometimes, almost all of them were destroyed. One of the most famous rare coins is the 1933 Double Eagle. This is a United States $20 gold coin. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt took the US off the gold standard to fight the Great Depression. He ordered that all the new 1933 gold coins be melted down, but a few of them, maybe about 20, escaped the melting pots. For years the government said it was illegal to own a 1933 double eagle. They tracked them down and seized them, but one coin ended up in the collection of King Farouk of Egypt. After many years and a long legal battle, that one coin was finally allowed to be privately owned. In 2021, it sold at auction for almost $19 million. That makes it the most valuable coin ever sold. It's a beautiful coin, designed by the famous artist Augustus St. Gaudens. But, honestly, its incredible story and its rarity are what make it a legend. It's the ultimate forbidden fruit of the coin world. Another crazy rare coin is the 1804 silver dollar. It's known as the king of American coins. Here's the funny thing about it. None of them were actually made in 1804. The US Mint had stopped making silver dollars in 1804, but in the 1830s, the government wanted to make some special coin sets to give as diplomatic gifts to foreign rulers. So, they decided to make some 1804 dated dollars to include in the sets. They only made a handful of them. Later, a few more were secretly made by Mint employees for collectors. Today, there are only 15 known 1804 dollars in the world. Each one is worth millions. It's not just American coins that are super rare. Let's talk about the Brasher doubloon. This was one of the very first gold coins made for the United States, even before the US Mint was established. It was made in 1787 by a man named Ephraim Brasher. He was a goldsmith and a neighbor of George Washington in New York. He made a few of these coins on his own. He stamped them with his own initials, EB. There are only a few of these known to exist. One of them sold for over $9 million. It's a piece of American history from the very beginning of the country. It's a tangible link to the founding fathers. You see it in movies all the time. Someone stumbles upon a buried treasure chest full of gold coins. You might think that only happens in Hollywood, but let me tell you, it happens in real life too. And when it does, it can change history. One of the greatest treasure finds ever was the Saddle Ridge Hoard. In 2013, a couple in Northern California was just walking their dog on their property. They saw the top of a rusty metal can sticking out of the ground. They dug it up and, you guessed it, it was full of old coins. Then they found another can and another and another. In total, they found 8 cans filled with 1,427 gold coins. The coins were US gold pieces from the late 1800s. They were in almost perfect condition. It was like someone had just put them in the ground yesterday. The face value of the coins was about $27,000. But because of their age and amazing condition, their actual value was estimated to be over $10 million. Nobody knows who buried them or why. Maybe it was a secret stash from some old prospector or a wealthy landowner. It's a true Wild West mystery, and it's the biggest buried treasure find in US history. Discoveries don't just happen on land. The oceans are full of lost treasure. For centuries, ships carrying gold and silver have sunk in storms or battles. In 1985, a treasure hunter named Mel Fisher found the wreck of the Nuestra Señora de Atocha. This was a Spanish galleon that sank in a hurricane off the coast of Florida in 1622. It was carrying a massive treasure from the New World back to Spain. For 16 years, Mel Fisher searched for it. When he finally found the main pile of treasure, it was unbelievable. He recovered over 40 tons of silver and gold, including thousands and thousands of silver coins. This discovery was huge. It wasn't just about the money. The Atocha treasure gave us an incredible look into the 17th century. The coins, the jewels, the artifacts, they were a time capsule. They taught historians about Spanish colonial life, shipbuilding, and trade. The coins themselves, called pieces of 8, became famous. Finding the Atocha was a dream come true, but it also showed how much history is still waiting to be discovered at the bottom of the sea. There are thousands of shipwrecks out there, each with its own story and its own lost treasure. So a guy brings a coin into the shop. He says his grandpa gave it to him, and he thinks it might be worth something. Sometimes it's just a common old wheat penny, but sometimes it's something special. So what makes one coin worth $1 and another worth $1 million? It really comes down to a few key things. And the first one, the big one, is always rarity. How many of them are out there? It's simple supply and demand. If 1 million people want a coin and there's only one, the price is gonna go through the roof. Rarity can happen for a lot of reasons. Maybe only a small number were minted in the first place, like the Brasher doubloon, or maybe most of them were melted down or lost, like the 1933 Double Eagle. Sometimes a coin is rare because of a mistake. This is called an error coin. For example, in 1955, the US Mint accidentally double-stamped a batch of pennies. This created a double die, where all the letters and numbers look like they have a shadow. Thousands of these got into circulation. People started finding them in their pocket change. Today, a 1955 double die penny can be worth over $1,000. The next thing you have to look at is condition. In the coin world, we call this the grade. A coin that looks brand new, like it just came from the mint, is called uncirculated. A coin that's been in people's pockets for 50 years is going to be worn down. The details will be smooth. The better the condition, the more it's worth. A common coin in perfect condition can be worth much more than a rare coin in terrible condition. That's why that Saddle Ridge hoard was so special. The coins had been buried for over 100 years, but they looked almost perfect. Finally, there's the story. A coin's history and its provenance can add a ton of value. Who owned it before? Was it part of a famous collection? Was it found on a historic shipwreck? The 1804 dollar that was owned by the Sultan of Muscat is worth more than other 1804 dollars, just because of its amazing story. People love to own a piece of history. A coin isn't just a piece of metal, it's an artifact that has traveled through time. And the better the story, the more people are willing to pay to be the next person to own it. Coinage didn't stop evolving in the 19th century. The 20th century brought huge changes. One of the biggest was the move away from precious metals. For thousands of years, a coin's value was tied to the metal it was made of. A silver dollar had about $1's worth of silver in it. But as the prices of gold and silver went up, it became too expensive for governments to keep making coins out of them. In 1965, the United States stopped making silver dimes and quarters. They switched to a clad coinage with a copper core sandwiched between layers of copper nickel. This was a major shift. Money was now fiat currency. That means it has value simply because the government says it does, not because of the metal inside it. This change made some modern coins instantly collectible. For example, any US quarter dated 1964 or earlier is 90% silver. Any quarter dated 1965 or later is not. That makes those pre-1965 silver coins worth more than their face value. People started hoarding them. It created a whole new area of collecting modern silver coins. It's a reminder that history doesn't have to be ancient to be valuable. The look of coins has changed too. Mints around the world have gotten incredibly creative. They now make coins in different shapes, colors, and even with special features. You can find coins that are square, coins that have holograms, and coins with pieces of meteorites embedded in them. These are often made for the collector market, not for spending at the grocery store. They are called non-circulating legal tender. They are official coins, but they're really made as small, affordable pieces of art and novelty. They are a way to celebrate national heroes, historic events, or even popular movies. And now, we are in the middle of another huge change, maybe the biggest one since the Lydians invented coins. I'm talking about digital currency. Things like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are challenging the very idea of what money is. You can't hold it in your hand. It's all just data on a computer. Will this be the end of physical coins? I don't think so. People have been predicting the end of cash for decades, but it's still here. There's something about the feel of a coin in your hand, the weight of it, the history it represents, that a digital file can never replace. So why do people collect coins? It's been called the hobby of kings because for a long time only the very rich could afford to do it. Kings and emperors would collect old coins from other empires, but today, anyone can be a coin collector. You can start with the change in your pocket. The State Quarters program, which started in 1999, got millions of Americans interested in looking at their change again. It was a treasure hunt that everyone could join. People were looking for quarters from all 50 states to fill up their collection maps. It showed that collecting can be fun and accessible. For some people, collecting is about the thrill of the hunt. It's about finding that last coin you need to complete a set. Or searching through rolls of coins from the bank, hoping to find a rare error or a silver coin. It's a bit like a lottery ticket, but you learn a lot along the way. You learn about geography, metallurgy, art, and history. Every coin has a lesson to teach. A collector might focus on one area, like Roman coins, or coins from shipwrecks, or coins with animals on them. The possibilities are endless. It's a hobby that can grow with you for your entire life. Collecting is also about preserving history. When you carefully put a coin into a protective holder, you are becoming its custodian. You are making sure that this little piece of the past survives for the next generation. Private collectors have saved countless coins from being melted down or lost. The collections they build become important historical resources. Many of the greatest museum collections in the world were started by passionate private collectors who later donated their treasures for everyone to see and study. It's a way of giving back and ensuring these stories are not forgotten. In the end, holding a rare coin is about connection. When I hold an old Roman denarius, I think about the Roman soldier who used it to buy a drink 2,000 years ago. When I see a Spanish piece of 8, I think about the galleons and pirates on the high seas. These coins have passed through so many hands and witnessed so much history. They are tangible links to our past. They remind us that we are part of a long, amazing story. And that's why, whether it's worth $1 or $1 million, every coin has a value that you just can't put a price on. You never know what's going to come through that.